program directors. Those are the NIH or other agency employees with expertise in that area who are assigned to those funding opportunity announcements.
The role of a program officer at NSF is pretty broad. They handle everything from the beginning to the end. So when a prospective PI calls and wants to know if it's if their research is a good fit for that program, they handle those calls and actually enjoy those calls. They set up the peer review process, which is a very important part of their job. They target expertise to invite people to review. They get people on the panel. And ultimately, at the end of a review cycle, they look at all the data they have in front of them and they bring their own expertise to bear as scientists, and they make funding recommendations that this should be awarded or this should be declined.
Program officers are very, very accessible individuals. Remember, it is their job to be able to fund scholars like us. Their success depends on their ability to fund scholars like us. They are our supporters.
Also, that's the person who's your biggest advocate going back to the agency's directors or funding leadership. So the better the relationship you can build, the better off you'll be.
It is important for us to not be afraid of them, to not be intimidated by them, instead to go forward to them and consider them as people who are helping us. But their goal is to help refine your thinking and to send you on your way either in that particular program or in some other program or in some cases on some other funding agencies to make sure that your project is well matched with the particular funding program initiative that would be most in line with what you're trying to do.
You know, I can't stress enough the importance of reading the call and then knowing your project well. I don't believe you should call the program officer if you're just in the planning stages and saying, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that?
In each of these cases, you have to do your homework to go to these websites and identify which programs within these funding agencies lines up with what you're interested in doing. They may be an exact match, but in some cases, you're not quite sure. That's where you begin to talk to the program officers.
It's like anytime you're reading a call, they will have specifications, and sometimes it's just good to check your understanding of the specifications with the grant program officer.
Program directors love to hear from you. They love to hear from you when you're prepared.
The program officers oftentimes are on the evaluation team, so they oftentimes lead the evaluation team. So just as faculty, we make judgments about students based on the questions they ask us that we may not think show that they're terribly informed about what they're talking about. If you go into the program officer with questions that shows that you have not done your homework, then you're going to have a really hard time that first time.
Grants are a lot of work. We don't want you wasting your time. So the most important thing to figure out right off the bat is this appropriate for NSF? Is it appropriate for this program or this particular solicitation? So definitely get in touch with your program officer.
I mean, we've been trained as foundation executives to know when you've got a great idea and bad implementation, or bad idea and good implementation, how to transform those into make sure that you've got a good idea with good implementations.
And they'll tell you if they think it's too applied or if it's too blue sky. We don't fund that kind of thing. We need something that has an application.
And ask them if this is something that is of relevance to their program, or if they know other programs within their funding agencies that this might be relevant to.
For every grantee or proposed grantee that I talk to, I say, give it your best shot right now. Tell me exactly what you want.
What they love to get is perhaps a full-page abstract on where you are, what you're thinking, what the theoretical hook is, how you plan to analyze these data, what the public health implications are, because that's what NIH is interested in, the public's health. Communication research is what you do to get there to improve the public's health. And then she or he would love to give you all sorts of advice.
Means of communication is electronically, since it gives us a little bit more flexibility in structuring the response.
They're often the best ways to start with an email. And an email with a description of your research is even better. That way we can read it when we have time and really think about it before we contact you back with our guidance about is it appropriate, or, oh, that sounds great, you might want to think about this other program within NSF because it might be appropriate there as well.
I get a chance to help shape their proposal. It helps meet our guidelines and mission of being able to reach low-income and rural folks. So I think there's guidance there that I can provide, to a grantee that you don't, get from a website.
Program officers will contact you and say, particularly if they've had a good relationship with you, and say, here's another opportunity, and I think that you would be ideal for this. And I greatly appreciate that, and I've had tremendous success in building those relationships and following up on those tips or those recommendations.
We decided, okay, that if we funded them the first year at a certain level and decided, it worked real well. But now we know that's not enough. We know that just 1 year's worth of funding, but how can we help you in the next 2 or 3 years, but in that 2 or 3 years help you find funders, and we'll help you do that because you're going to be giving us credible reports that we hopefully then will be able to share with other funders who will be able to, because we require post-grant evaluations of everyone, and we'll take that and we will then be your advocate.
I've finished projects and I've had program officers come to me and say, we do have some remaining budget. Is there another stage you'd like to complete in your research? In which case I've said, yes. There's always more we can do.
Everybody at NIH, we don't get commissions on the applications that we end up funding. We're all really, really dedicated people who want to help researchers and want to improve the public's health.
We know that NSF can appear to be this huge government bureaucracy, but there's people there, and there's scientists there, and they're interested. Sure, they're busy, but trust me, when someone calls and wants to talk about science for a while, that's kind of the nice break in the day. So really, don't hesitate to do it.